July 17th, 2023, Westfield, Washington Township Advisory Plan Committee, Commission meeting to order. If staff could please confirm the presence of a quorum.
Ms. Berkman?
Here.
Mr. Degg? Mr. Horke?
Here.
Mr. Johns?
Here.
Ms. Kelleher? Mr. Maui?
Here.
Mr. McCarty?
Here.
Mr. Schmitz? And Ms. Polcherick.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Excellent. Dr. Kelleher presumably will be coming by. The others have acknowledged they would not be present. So, next is any changes to the agenda, of which there are none. And then we move on to approval of our minutes of the July 5th, 2023 meeting. Is there a motion to accept these minutes into the record?
So moved.
Victor?
I'll second that.
Andre, that was over there. We have a motion from Victor McCarty, seconded by Andre Maui. We're all present, so we do a voice vote. Everybody in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Is there anybody opposed? Minutes are approved. Staff could now review the rules and procedures for tonight's workshop meeting.
Yes, so tonight's meeting is a workshop meeting. So general procedures for workshop meetings include the department will introduce the petition stating when the item was last before the Plan Commission. The Plan Commission and the petitioner will then discuss the changes made to the ordinance using a staff overview as a guide for the discussion. Once the discussion is finished, the department will summarize the final changes that are expected to be made prior to the petition, returning for a recommendation. The general rules of conduct for this evening: please do not disrupt the proceedings in any way. If you need to have a private discussion, then we please ask that you quietly exit the room. Please silence your devices. If you must answer them, then please quietly exit the room. We would like to remind those attending virtually to please mute your microphone when not speaking. Thank you.
Thank you. There is no consent agenda, one workshop meeting. So if we can go ahead and get started with staff presentation, and then we'll give the petitioner some time to explain changes or whatever else they care to explain. Let's move on.
Thank you. Good evening, APC members. For the record, Ryan Collingwood with the Community Development Department. The project before you this evening is the Claiborne Farms Kimblewick Phase 2 PUD proposal. This project proposal encompasses about 16 acres and is generally located at the southwest intersection of Town Road and West 156th Street. Since the petition had its public hearing on June 5th, there have been numerous changes to the proposal as outlined in the staff report. Some of the changes include a modification to the conceptual plan, PUD ordinance edits, and other changes in which will be addressed in additional detail by the petitioner's representative. This item is here this evening for a workshop discussion. The petitioner wishes to receive feedback from the Plan Commission in response to the changes that have been made to the project proposal in preparation for a recommendation at your next APC meeting. John Debashewitz is here this evening to provide updated details of the project. He is available for questions, as am I if you have any for staff. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Debashewitz.
Thank you very much. For the record, John Debashewitz with Nelson and Frankenberger. We represent the petitioner, Pulte Homes of Indiana. The folks that are here on behalf of Pulte this evening, Tabitha Calvain, Rex Ramage, Dave Compton, Jim Shenerver with our office are all here. Wanted to review with the Plan Commission the adjustments that have been made. The exhibits that I'm going to use, we uploaded today. They just provide a graphic representation of some of the things that we already submitted. I don't think there may be one additional slide that we put in there for reference to show some distances, but I think everything else is, in addition to the red line of the ordinance, has been previously submitted. Just as a background, the site's 16 acres in size. Kimblewick's approximately 245. Adjacent to our west perimeter and south perimeter are the Kimblewick neighborhood. Westchester is, and some individual single-family lots are over here. To our east, north and east is the golf course, and to our north, there's two adjoining properties. The Anderson and Heights parcels are to our north. Just another blow up there of the site location. This represents the proposal we had in front of the Plan Commission at the time of the public hearing. I know we did some forecasting, or some foreshadowing rather, of the things we were considering. But the lots, as you can see here, were fanned around the outside edge of these two northern cul-de-sacs. Didn't provide pedestrian or access over to Town Road. The path terminated here at the south edge of the lift station, and there's a 40-foot buffer along our perimeter with the ordinance prescribed plantings within that buffer. At the time, there were 43 lots proposed, resulting in a net increase of 24 lots over the originally approved Kimblewick from 490, which is approved today, to 514. This is the revised concept plan here, and there are a couple items that got deleted from the slide, and we're gonna go in some more detail on each one of these as we move further through the conversation. We more than doubled the setback from the north property line from 40 feet to between 85 and 100 feet, depending on which lots that we're looking at. We've got a blow up of that, we'll show you. No homes now have the back oriented to the adjoining parcels with where there will be fewer windows and less activity in the side yard. The path along Town Road was extended behind the lift station and terminated at the adjoining property line to the north. There was a temporary construction access provided, which will become a long-term pedestrian path. I can mark it here. So this is the location of that temporary construction access that'll become a path in the future. The fence along Town Road will be extended across the entire frontage of our site with an opening for that temporary access and future pedestrian path. We consulted with an arborist. We submitted for the record a transmittal from Judd Scott. Judd went out on site and evaluated some areas to help us assess the gaps which existed in the tree line along the property to the north, that being the Anderson property. Proposed drainage enhancements on our parcel and to the north are proposed. I can show you details of that in a minute. There was some low-lying area on the adjoining parcel. Pulte's agreed to extend subsurface drain onto that site to pick that up. In general, stormwater on this site will be picked up internally, transmitted to the pond, and then north and east onto the golf course site before you get to the legal drain to the south. So there is no water that would drain off our site onto the Heights parcel to the north. I know that was a question at the time of the public hearing, concern about stormwater or fertilizer runoff onto that property. So everything that comes on us, we pick up, transmit it internally, and process it through our stormwater improvements. The revised plan resulted in one additional lot, whereby there are now 44 total lots on this site. And two other items. The trees that were previously within the buffer space here, we reoriented and relocated some of those primarily onto the Anderson parcel, and 25 additional trees within the common area between the proposed lots and the lots within the existing Kimblewick. Blowing that up, we talked previously about the 40-foot dimension here. That was the minimum buffer setback. We more than doubled that, but the plan still provides for 30% open space, which is 2 times the open space required under the UDO. Here we show the closest lot is now 85 feet. These two lots are in the low 90s, like 90 to 92 feet removed from the property line. And this lot here is a little over 100 feet removed from the north property line. So again, the buffer previously was 40 feet, and we've expanded that to 85 to 100 feet at those two locations. Additionally, you can see here the reorientation of these lots rather than fanning them out along that north perimeter with the backs where we'd have activity. Most of these homes have either recessed or outdoor living space attached to them, so now you're doing that east and west to the buffer along, or to the mound along Town Road, and or the lots within the existing Kimblewick rather than to the north. So it's going to cut down on light. There's fewer windows on the side of the home than there is the back, and then activity in general that might produce noise. Pulte met, this is the Andersons' home, they're present tonight. Pulte met and discussed with them on a couple occasions their concerns written into the ordinance today. There are provisions for additional trees to be planted along the south edge of the property here in that gap area. You can see that generally in this vicinity. This is a view looking south towards that gap area. And then 3 additional trees that would be planted here north of the garage, but helps again screen their, if I'm mistaken, I apologize, but I think this is some outdoor living space on the back of the home. So these trees here would probably better help screen towards the south than plantings in this space along the north side of the lots. This blue line identifies additional subsurface drain that would be installed on the site to pick up this low-lying area here. But again, the stormwater that comes on, the rain that comes on our site, we're picking that up internally, transmitting it to the pond that you see here. This is the pond. And then this is the outfall for the pond that goes over and comes down to the golf course site, which is behind this photo here. Additionally, as I indicated, the black and white is the existing plantings within that space. They're representations of what is planted there today, evergreen, deciduous trees and shrubs. The green identifies additional plantings that we would make, and Pulte's agreed to work with those homeowners there. If, 5-10 feet either side of where they're located, we'll go out and put stakes in the ground as to where those where those additional trees would be planted between that space. And then we put up this exhibit. I can't remember, someone may have asked for this at the Plan Commission meeting, kind of an overall aerial. This is the Coronado site plan that they have for, and I apologize because I can't remember the name of the subdivision off the top of my head. Sycamore Glen, sorry, thank you. This is the development for Sycamore Glen to our north and west. The Heights, and I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, their home is up here along 159th Street, roughly 1,270 feet to the north, and about 43 feet here. The Andersons, their house sits back about 78 feet from the property line, so as I described, we're going from 40 feet up to a greater dimension there, between 85 and 100 feet. And there's an additional homeowner, I know they're here tonight as well. Their house sits about 244 feet removed from the property line. I apologize, I didn't commit their last name to memory. Bohm, the Bohms are here this evening, and they live on that parcel right here. I think those are the 3 people that we heard from at the public hearing, in addition to a couple of the residents who live within Kimblewick today. We were asked for an exhibit that helped illustrate the density within Kimblewick today. So like I indicated, Kimblewick today is 245 acres and approved for 490 lots. We're adding 44 lots on the site, but that's gonna result in 26 additional homes. When you add the additional homes plus what's existing today, we're going up to about 516, from 490 to 516. That's about 1 additional house for every 10 acres. These are those numbers that result when you do the math and wrap areas in different sections of the development. In general, at the time of zoning for Kimblewick, the task that we were assigned, I say we because we represented Pulte at the time of zoning approval, was to come up with a plan that transitioned from east to west. And you can see a lot of additional tree preservation and reforestation in these spaces. If you go out there today, in particular this area right here, north of 151st Street, along the west perimeter of the site, there were certain setbacks and reforestation and planting standards that went into effect within that space. I think there's still some amenities out there and some trails, but in general, it's area that's open space and ponds and additional landscaping. This is just for reference. We added it to the slides that shows our site in relation to Kimblewick and the comprehensive plan. This is I should have pulled this up to show you. This is that space I was talking about, and again, from east, I'll show you here, from east to west, this is Town Road, 151st Street, lot development, but then a strong area along the western perimeter, which was getting over into that rural southwest space. So I'm gonna pull it back to the overall slide of the updated plan. And then just open it up for, this is a newer thing, the whole workshop, so I don't know if it's more of a dialogue, and
Correct.
I didn't wanna go through like 100% presentation and that, but we're open to, input on the revisions that are made and to answer additional questions the commission may have.
Okay, we'll start. Let's note that Dr. Kelleher arrived at 7:05, so she is now present. And are there commissioner questions or comments for staff or the petitioner's team?
I've got a question. So I was out of town during the previous meeting that we had this on June 5th or whatever, so I didn't hear the before comment, so if, you know, this was already discussed or whatever, I'm just trying to get up to speed on a few things. Could you go back to the, I think it was the previous slide that has the before and after on the same previous version and current, whatever, yeah, that one. So I noticed on here, so there's the landscape plan shows a tree line within this property, within that 40-foot. The new one, you've doubled the distance, but the landscape's moved elsewhere, right?
Correct.
It's just not missing from the slide, it actually is not anticipated there.
So, and Dave and Rex can probably describe this more effectively, but, they reached out to Judge Scott, who's an arborist that has a business here in town. I say here in town generally, Carmel. But he went out to the site and looked at the area, and there's a significant amount of trees, on the parcel to the north, as well as a solid tree line as you work from east to west over here. You can see the tree row right here. On the opposite side of this tree row, about right here generally, that's the Heights parcel, and there's field beyond that. But within a 20-foot space of the shared property line, there's an existing sanitary sewer easement that the city actually obtained years ago for a force main. So the utility controls that today, that 20 feet, but there are trees that are along the shared property line, that fence row, that are in, either on the north of that property line or along our site. And we're not gonna get in that space, except for the improvement that we're making on the Anderson's parcel to get the subsurface drain in there. We anticipate those trees are gonna stay in because there's an existing force main in that space, but we can't guarantee that. But when we looked at it, we said, well, what's the need? The need is to help address the Anderson's trees, to help address the folks to the south, because we took and reoriented, I say reoriented, we're not proposing to provide a second buffer or second line of trees. We're gonna pull that and put it to the south where the neighbors wanted to see it, put it on the Andersons where it has the gaps in place today, but not provide a second buffer, if you will, where it's the tree line that's there is it's mature, we'll just call it mature, and we're not gonna, a second line's not gonna get there and provide any additional assistance.
All that makes sense, and you've probably answered, but I'll ask the direct part that I was leading up to anyway, then, because that existing tree line is mature. And I appreciate it, sounds like you've been working with the neighbors and trying to buffer everything to everybody's liking there. Is the mature tree line have enough low coverage or foliage, whatever, for headlights that will be heading north into each of those two cul-de-sacs, not to be up into the woods where those would be bothersome? That's the one concern I had with this reorientation of that landscaping and so forth.
And we hadn't thought about that, but it's probably, we can come up with a planting plan for the north end of the cul-de-sacs to do either low growing, that in combination with a few trees at the end of the cul-de-sac, maybe evergreens.
Okay.
We can address any.
As everybody works on this to get happy with it, you just have to remember the nighttime, not just the daytime aspect of it. I didn't know if that was covered, so.
That's a good thought, because obviously in the plan beforehand, you had houses that were covering the cul-de-sac. But yes, we have mature trees there today, but I think more so, especially during the winter time, when they're not so flush with greenery. There's more open space there, so that's a fantastic idea that I agree with. Specifically, possibly the evergreens there at the north end of the cul-de-sacs there. More so towards the neighbors closest to Town Road, since their house is right there as opposed to the Heights they're pretty far back, so that won't be too worrisome, but definitely on that end there. And then I just wanted to share my appreciation, cause a lot of the notes that I had taken that were concerns in the previous meeting seemed to have been addressed with the path, and just additional buffer with the neighbors. That was my number one concern, just wanting the neighbors to the north being taken care of, so I appreciate all the time and consideration into that.
Can I jump in?
Yeah, please.
I appreciate what you guys have done working with him. I think this is a much better plan, and you got an extra lot, so it was worth it.
And we got to spend time with Judd, who you know really well.
That's right.
One of our favorite people.
Yes, yes. This is more a nitty-gritty thing, and it has to do with what Andre said. His suggestion about headlights is a good one, because it's not just a matter of space. And let me see if I can ask this properly. There are mature tree lines on the neighbor's property to the north. There are mature trees. Are there mature trees on your side of the property line?
There are, but they're in that 20-foot easement.
Okay,
So we can't, while we're not proposing to remove any, they could be removed based upon the desire of the utility to
right,
work within their easement.
right. And so the easement is not owned by Westfield anymore, it's owned by
Citizens.
citizens. Because I talked to Kevin at pre-APC meeting and I said, it seems a shame if we have trees and they're putting in a drainage and utility easement or something, to have to cut those down, especially if we've got 80 feet, couldn't we move that easement out of the tree line? Now that I know Citizens is involved, that might be a little more difficult conversation. But it would be nice to have, because I hate to lose any of those trees. And if they could move their easement farther in,
We might be able to, you know, as you know, Dr. Keller, that being the type of pipe that they use, it's good for 100 years. So we're looking at a long-term problem based on how many years it's already in. But that's a really interesting point I hadn't thought of. We could expand it, Rex, maybe 5 to 10 feet further south. Because when they're gonna get into those trees is when they're working on the pipe, right?
right,
They gotta have a place to throw the spoils.
right,
And without, you know, I wouldn't think they would need more than 10 feet more to be able, because those force mains generally are 10 to 15 inches in diameter. They're high pressure, 80 to 110 PSI, because it's pushing back toward the plant, right?
right, right.
And so, but they're only they got 4 feet of cover on the top, you know, they're not like the Interceptor.
Right, yeah,
And so I think maybe with 10 more feet, we could be a good neighbor and, you know, throw the spoil, they have plenty of place to throw the spoil in the future if they need to do a repair or replacement and not get in to the trees we're talking about that may have encroached from the north to
Right,
the
right.
south.
yeah, I hate to lose those, and I know,
Yeah,
you
we'll
know.
look at it, that's a
Yeah,
good
the way
idea.
things are done, it's kinda like, here's our line, and
Yeah.
maybe we can wiggle that line a little bit and save some trees.
Yeah, I like that idea.
Is there a force main there already? There's nothing, okay, so it's already in.
Yeah. But if they have to do a repair, having that ability to say, hey, guys, now you have the place to throw the dirt to the south.
Right,
Or even if you're gonna build a second one or relocate it one day, you've got the ability to push it. Now the center of the easements, we can add 10 feet, 5 feet further south. Now all of a sudden they can not have to get into the trees, which
Yeah,
I
that would
think
be
we
great.
all want. Yeah,
That would be
we'll reach out to Citizens. That's another good idea. So,
and then my other question has to do with Andre's question about lights. I know Judd was out there and, looked at the trees and talked about adding some additional, but understory lower, because when those there are no evergreens, there are very few evergreens along there, they're all deciduous trees, so in the winter, they're not gonna have any leaves, so I don't know if there was any thought of putting some lower shrubs or something like that in there to help with that.
Yeah, in Judd's memo that we submitted to the city, so
Okay.
it's of record there. He took that into account in his recommendation. There's a
Okay.
total of 12 trees, 5
usually
tall,
pretty
4
thorough.
medium, and then 3 evergreens.
Okay,
And as recently as today, I'm not sure if it was the morning or the afternoon, Jack and I traded emails, and the exhibit where we kind of had those 3 additional trees closer to the patio space, they had expressed a desire to maybe move those closer to that south property
Okay.
line to, you know, to give it additional
Sure,
coverage there.
okay. I think that's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, I do have one other question.
Sure.
Are the neighbors here tonight and are they pleased? I mean, I haven't heard, or maybe John can answer it. I don't wanna speak for somebody else, but.
Hi, with the Innocents. Yes,
Hi.
yeah, been very happy with the discussion back and forth, and I think we've reached a good compromise with everything.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Cindy, you have comments, questions, whatever?
I'm still having trouble with the amount of lots here. And I keep going back to the original PUD that was approved, and there was a max unit count of 2 per acre if it wasn't in the southwest. In the southwest, it was 1. And so, you know, you combine that and you think overall about the real density there, and then you're adding this piece in, which doesn't have that feel to me at all, to go with the collection of the rest. Especially given, you know, the elevations I've seen. Right now, it seems the way it's written, just like now you can even have an elevation that has no window on it at all. It's possible if you have windows on the other 3, so there's just, I don't know if this is the best
You're
we
asking
can
us
get.
to look at adding windows to the sides of houses?
I'm trying to figure out how light gets in these units, how things work, when you're talking about how tight they are, there's this many, you know. And again, we're just reproducing this all the way up. I don't know.
If you reach out to us, Cindy, this week, we can,
I know
have the
Ginny had asked
salesperson and-
specifically to have less lots, and instead we got 1 more. You see what I'm saying?
and that's the way the plan worked out, cause we weren't targeting X in terms of lots, although be it's less than the overall density that was originally permitted under the Kimblewood PUD, where the net result is a lower density that's the overall PUD. We were targeting site modifications that made a difference to the surrounding property owners.
I appreciate your attention to the surrounding property owners, that's obviously incredibly important to me, but I also have to think about the broader community and the way everything fits in together.
So if you come in today into Kimblewick and you get to the clubhouses, terminate your view and you turn to the right, the area of lots clustered in that space is about 3.6 homes per acre. And the proposal here is 2.8. The majority of open space in that, in the area, the subject area is along the north property line, and the town road frontage, so we're gonna treat town road the same. We're gonna provide an 80 to 100 foot buffer along the north perimeter, which I think, I can go back and do these measurements here. That was the pond in that location, some areas to the south. So here, you know, 3.56 homes per acre in this space, 3.65 in this space. We're 2.8, we're somewhere in the middle of that area. Again, we're transitioning from east to west. That was the task at the time of the Kimblewick zoning.
John, go to the comp plan, please. We're in the new suburban area, which has a 2 to 5 units an acre. When we did the zoning, as you remember, we had extensive discussions.
2 to 5 units an acre, where are you getting that?
That was out of the comp plan. In the new suburban, if I remember right.
There was no number put in that.
No,
Okay, maybe I'm thinking the
No,
wrong
there's no
one.
number.
no.
You
But we
deal
were
in a lot of
transitioning
communities.
from a higher density to obviously a lower density. And we were very cognizant of the gray line, that by the time we got to the gray line, that's where we did a lot of reforestation, a lot of open space and that sort of thing, so.
Unfortunately for me, it's a continuation of something I already voted no at council. And I feel the same way, I have the same concerns. So for me, it's just a continuation of those same issues.
From I mean, do you think it turned out well? I mean, how do you think it turned out as a community, as a neighborhood within our community?
I don't wanna get into that here, John.
But that's what we're trying to enhance it. So if we can't define
I
what's
don't
there
know that
today,
adding it
decide what.
necessarily
what's better.
enhances it, is what I'm trying to.
So we're adding to something that you said you didn't vote for, and that's why I'm trying to get at. Are you disappointed with the way that Kimblewick turned out as a neighborhood within our community? And if you are, I understand. If that's not the case, then we believe that our plan enhances it But if it's not viewed favorably from a public policy perspective by you, I understand. And
I don't
whatever
wanna
we do
see
to it,
you
it's not as
putting more
good.
of the lower end on our primary thoroughfare.
I don't see anybody here from Kimblewick tonight. There is no low end within Kimblewick.
No, I mean, in terms of what you were showing us, what was gonna be here, it was on the lower end of the,
There's no low end in Kimblewick. There's homes that range from $450,000 to $700,000. We're not proposing any.
I was going back, and
Low end is
I
not
just
a good-
listened to the
maybe
meeting
not, maybe it's the
again
wrong,
today, but
maybe it's the wrong descriptor, but
it probably is, but
I just, again, I don't know if anybody from Kimball's here tonight, but I'm not gonna share that. I'm not gonna share that. I'll leave it at that.
no, it just seemed to be that we were looking at more of the just lower end of the models that you were going to do for the rest of Kimballwick. You were gonna put your lower ones there in this new.
That was the
property.
concern of the residents that spoke that night, John, that back up to this. They were feeling like it wasn't an equivalent.
Maybe lower end
Design.
isn't
In
the
fact,
right word.
to
Maybe
you had
the-
it's
actually
smaller.
what
told
they had
Jenny you would bring up,
invested in.
cause you asked about the clustering, are these products clustered based, in terms of their models and stuff like that? You had asked that, Jenny.
Yeah, I asked if they were intermixed, and John
Right.
said, not really, there are sections that have these products and other sections that have other products. I would love to see them intermixed, but I know that's something that you guys don't do or you struggle with. And I know the neighbors were saying that these seem to be the smaller lots or the smaller homes. I don't wanna use lower end because it's certainly not low end. And that they were, I guess they wanted things that were comparable in size and lot size to them. I think that was the discussion.
Can you go to the density?
Public hearing. Comments.
So I think this might address, of course, we did the color overlay, so we can't see it, but I'll try to articulate this as best as I can. So let's call it the Keeneland series is all these lots here. And then what we'd be proposing there, again, keeping in the town road working west. The middle series are right in here, and then right in here, and then the lots right here. Then the largest of the three series are again in that southwest district area to transition density from east to west. So apologies that this is not a clean version, but that was the original plan, and we believe what we're showing is keeping true to that original plan.
Rix, would it be possible if we just pull up your website? Would you be able to take us through it?
Sure.
Is that okay? Can we? Sure, just got control of the.
Oh, is that the only mouse?
Yeah. Sorry. Keyboard.
Some perspective. Let's take a look at that.
Kevin, while we're doing that, could you figure out what the density is on Sycamore Glen, please? Do you have an idea what that is?
Sycamore Glen.
Coronado Homes.
Let's try.
It's just a little.
Should I get a little bit more specific? Yeah, you can type in Kimballwick, Pulte. City. You can actually probably click on that if you can get to it, yep. And then if you would, scroll down, keep going, there should be. Actually go up, that's all Westfield. View community here, top left. Continue. And then when that pops up on the top bar, there should be a
That would at least be as equal density.
home site map right here.
Yes, it's right.
Whoops.
Yes. that's
And then
why it's
open
getting
interactive
there,
map.
'cause I think it's under one. So,
So if you try to zoom in a little bit with your cursor north of 151st Street.
closer to the PUD. That would be,
Or submap 1, yeah, try that.
yeah, that's gotta be.
So again, I'll try to stay low, but these green lots here are the Keeneland series. Again, that would be Town Road working west. The pink lots start here, are kind of here as well, so you have that next row, and then starting here. And then the Churchills, which would be the largest of the home series, are wrapping this corner, starting here, and then wrapping that west corner as well. So the subject site is located up here in that white area. We believe that the Keeneland series is keeping with that original plan, because Town Road west. Again, that's the theory.
It's a lot differential. One.
Among the three housing products, what are the required lot widths to get each of them situated?
The Keeneland series, I believe, are 46 feet wide. The pink, the Belmont series in the middle are, I think they're 52 feet wide. And then the Churchills, I believe, are 65 or 66 feet wide.
So if there was one less lot along the south end of the new section, those lots could then expand to more equivalently match what's existing in the section just below that? I'm not real fast at mental math or accurate, but I'm just trying to figure out.
So yeah, I mean, I guess if
You're lining up with a certain
If the question is,
number.
if you're starting here to the south and you're working to this kind of a very faint white line, if you guys can see that.
Yeah.
Right before the lots start to turn, if that's your universe, you have 12 to the south and 13 on the proposed.
So would there be any perceived benefit to having 12 and 12 as opposed to 12 and 13? That's a very small difference.
And I know we've had that conversation with those neighbors. We've been out there multiple times. We've walked it. We've talked, hey, you can't pass sugar to the person behind you. How far would that be? Can you step it off? I mean, we've done those exercises with them, and I don't want to speak for them. They're not in the room, but I feel like we got to a place where they are comfortable with this plan.
Okay. And I'm comfortable with it too. I think we're kind of splitting hairs.
Sure.
But it might be beneficial to get it out in the air for a brief discussion here tonight. I don't think there's a lot of value gained by aligning things that are so closely already in the same general dimensions.
I guess, Rex, my question was, the actual home design too. I wanna talk more about density, but the homes, the Keeneland versus
Oh, you
all
want to see
those-
like the elevations?
Yes.
Okay.
Because I think Cindy has had an architecture question.
Sure.
there.
Right.
Is that possible to get to
Yeah,
that?
we can.
And then did that not show that section on 146th Street, that map you were just showing, is that not on the website yet?
It can. We just kind of clicked on a sub area.
Okay, because there's a whole nother section
Yep.
to the south, correct?
Correct,
So
so
we're
map
not
two,
looking
so
at
that's
the entire.
That's 151st Street South.
151st south, so now we cut the project in half, right? Everything we've been talking about, what you see on the density exhibit in your map, that's everything north of this point. Now we're south. 146th Street to the south, 151st, Town Road's over here. So again, as you're working Town Road west, you have all these Keeneland lots, and then the pink swath is the Belmont lots, and then the larger series to the west there, the Churchill series. Again, in keeping with that original plan.
I'm sorry, this is 100, it's just so small.
Yes,
I'm so
146th Street's
sorry.
right
That's
here.
You can make it bigger.
146 now, and then that's
I don't know the text we showed.
151st. Yeah,
Yes.
okay.
Yeah, 151st, 146th. The north section, the amenities probably right up here.
We can put it on one.
Yeah, there you go. So we were just looking at the yellow on the previous version.
So the largest lots along the west perimeter, generally, the mid lots, these are Keeneland lots, down here to the south. And we just looked at the site plan for this to show you that the Keenelands generally, the Belmont through the middle, and the largest lots along the west perimeter.
And so then you're flipping back to the Keeneland as you go.
As
towards
we're,
the
as we're starting at
midsection.
Town Road again, working west. Because, I mean, if the same owner controlled the property at the very beginning, we would be having the same discussion we are today about what lot type was in that area.
Cause you're supposed to, also, density is supposed to decrease as you go inward too. It's not just east to west, it's also 32 to 146 becomes less dense as you come to the middle, according to the comp plan. So that's, when we talk about the density, John, do you mind going, well, I'm sorry, we're jumping around. Let's answer Cindy, the architecture. May we look at those homes, this Keeneland versus,
John, I don't know if we have those in your slide deck. So this is a representative mix of both the Keeneland and Belmont series. And it's very challenging to figure out which one's which, not because the pictures are small, because the houses are so similar.
and then your other series is named,
The Churchill.
I don't think there's a image that we're gonna find that has got multiple,
Keeneland, Belmont, Churchill, there you go.
yeah, but it doesn't have,
Oh, it's internal.
that's what we're gonna see. We're not gonna see like several on a page.
Yeah, the only place you'd have that would be in your original ordinance.
I think that, what is the product, like 2 feet to 4 foot wider?
The Churchill series homes are 54 feet wide. The Belmont series is 40 feet wide. And then the Keeneland series is 34 feet wide.
So it's 6 foot.
And the reason why there's such a stark difference once you jump up into that Churchill is that it has a third car garage built into the footprint of the site. Or, I'm sorry, built into the footprint of the home. And it really is, you know, the square footages are vastly different, and it's for people that are moving down from every bit of $1 million plus, probably more. But that's not to say that someone who lives in a 34-foot wide Keeneland home is a slouch. I mean, they go for well over $500,000, and 40% of Del Webb's are
40% of
widowed or
Del
divorced.
Webbers are either divorced, widowed, or single for some reason. So that's very popular to serve that market because 40% of the people are single because they're either widowed, divorced, or single. So that is the target buyer that we don't want to be exclusionary in what we sell. All of them have hardy plank, all the dimensional shingles, all the overhang, all the architectural standards on corner lots, everything is exactly the same in all three series. But by offering 3 different product widths, we go from about 1,400 square feet to over 2,700, if I remember right. So it depends what you want in the size of your house, and then there's also lofts available. So I really don't wanna exclude that 40% of the home buying market that is lost their spouse or divorced or single for some other reason, and but it's still the same house, same quality, same interior finishing available across all 3 opportunities for buying.
When we did
I'm sorry,
the original Kimball Wick, you were right, we focused our attention on decreasing the density as it went west. We didn't really talk about north or south. And maybe that was because the northern homes in the original Kimball Wick were larger lots. But to be fair to them, that was what we focused on. It doesn't mean it's not appropriate to say we now want to go from higher density to lower density as we go north-south, which is what the comp plan said. But to give them, you know, at least some credit, that was never asked of them originally. Not that it shouldn't or couldn't be now, but it wasn't asked originally, it was east to west.
Awesome, thank you.
And we didn't, at the time, there wasn't a discussion about, it was, the lot size was a function of transitioning from a density standard from east to west. It wasn't about which house was gonna be on, which lot. It was more about, again, the transition in lot size resulted in the change in the density from east to west across the site.
I think town roads, I don't wanna speak out of turn, but I think we've given enough right of way for 4 lanes. If I remember right, at one time, it was going to have a divided median, I don't know if that's still in the works or not, but town road is proposed to continue from where it's 4 lanes in Carmel to be a major north-south road.
It's 150-foot right away.
Yeah, you can put 4 lanes and a center island there, so just land planning in density in general. You're gonna go from higher intensity on a 4-lane road over to that, so that was another consideration that we looked at.
What's the current mix that you have in your lots between Keeneland, Belmont, and Churchill?
We
And just the
typically,
current plan.
we typically go like 40-40-20, 20 being the lesser of the high end, just because that buyer
Yeah.
depth isn't there.
Give that spreadsheet, Rex. Got the spreadsheet.
So right now, the plan's 40% Keeneland, 40% Belmont, and 20% Churchill.
Approximately. And I would tell you that south section nearest 146th Street,
We took out some
we
Keenelands.
converted Keenelands to Churchills. Just because the site planning, enhancements, there's a lot of existing woodlands and trees and things of that nature. And to kind of continue what we were doing down there. So what we did, to get back to the density, issue is there were approximately 245 acres. We all established, we don't want this to have more than 2 units to the acre. So the magic number was 490 units. So in our efforts to continue to go through the project, react to market conditions, some of those Churchills wanting to be in the nicer lots of the community, we actually have decreased from 490 lots to, I believe it was like 471 or 474, something like that. So we're down, 16, 17 units from the original lot count number. And then when we need to provide a road connection internal to the development to the new subject area, we're reducing 2 more lots. So you're now down 19, but then, thanks. So 490, we're down 17 with all the current changes today. The proposed growth number is 515 with the current plan. So we're still under that 2 point, the density of 2 per acre with this added real estate. Check my math if I'm wrong, John.
That is it. And we had this discussion this afternoon, and the density goes from capped at 2 to, I think it's 1.98.
Yeah.
And it's less, but we're splitting hairs. We're not asking for everybody's vote because we reduced the density from 2 to 1.98. We're seeking people's recommendation and support on a plan that makes sense for this property. The adjustments that have been made to the buffer, the accommodations for the adjacent owners in terms of lot landscaping, that's what makes the plan. I'd be glad to hear any other questions we had regarding density, but I don't see us coming back with a plan that picks whatever that number of lots is and takes it away.
How many acres did you say the current one is? The current,
245 and
thank
change.
you, okay. This is an additional
This one's 16.
I think the density topic is one that we need to think about more macro level than so fine tuning and splitting hairs. And we could, needs to be large area by large area, not such a small little phase that just extends what's already there. And we could easily challenge ourselves, and I think we do sometimes, on whether we've done a good job on that, because I think sometimes it's crept. But this isn't that macro level discussion, because it's already kind of surrounded. This is a notch that we're looking at extending, so I just look at it as more or less matching what's there. And it makes sense, because I think from the outside looking in, with the way it's buffered, the perception of density isn't there, which is what I'm more concerned about. Not the person who's already chosen based on what their desires are to live in that market when they're on their street looking at the houses. When you're outside looking in, I don't think you see the 2 houses per acre even. That's my take on it.
I think I know you weren't there, Andre, the conversation was a little bit that we've had this piece up next to the AGSF one on neighbors. And so you're going from this 2.0 to 0.33, which is drastic, and they've had this piece as this buffer that was supposed to be a church. It was actually a church owned that property. So the open space around the church is very different than putting the houses. So that was the conversation we had, and having this drastic, you know, and it is all trying to fix things that are already there a little bit. So I don't disagree with you, the context of 2 sides of them. It's this other side where we've just got this drastic change now. And it's not just their home, all those homes along Town Road are AGSF one down to Bent Creek. There's a pretty good section, and you've got the golf course. So that was the density
Yeah, that's,
discussion, and I just talked a lot about making sure that we've properly buffered those people. I guess a couple questions now about the buffer. The 85 feet is going from the lot line to the next neighbor's lot line, to their property line, cause that dotted line had me confused just a little
That's
bit.
the existing easement.
That's that 20-foot
Okay.
force main easement
Okay,
that
and
hugs the north.
then the other question I had regarding their trees and everything, it kind of said large, medium, small. Are there some heights that can be put to that?
Yep.
You know, we've run into things where people say tall and they're 5 feet.
Yeah.
And there's a big difference
Yeah.
in sizes of trees, so I saw that was kind of general, and I think for you all, it'd be nice to have specifics on that.
I think the context for that was the growing of those plant materials at maturity.
Like a canopy or a shade
Yeah,
tree
that was a
versus an ornamental tree.
The plantings that we would do would meet the ordinance standards for plantings. I think 2.5-inch caliper is what we had in the ordinance, and it was either 6 or 8 feet for evergreen trees, but that's in the ordinance today. The planting standard, the standard at planting. The discussion in Judd's transmittal was discussing trees in the context of how they mature, not what height they're planted at.
If you all can clarify that with the neighbors, because that's a lot, I understand what you're saying, John, but that's a lot of technical information that they may not understand, that I'd like them to understand what, what they're doing.
We'll circle back around
Thanks,
and
Dave.
provide, and meet back out there if we need to, and I know he was looking at exactly buffer, understory, and how they would mature out, but we'll certainly circle back around at height and planting is what I think Kristen, we're talking about right now. That's good. I made a note.
Thank you.
Be pretty to see a lot of redwoods along there because they like the south side, and they'd be out in the sun and they're
Yep, I
kind
like
of.
that.
that's good context, thank you. I should have watched the video before tonight on what the previous discussion was. I guess for me, it's this view a neighbor only sees when they're looking at Google Earth in a few years or whatever satellite view versus walk out in the backyard and turn and look south. That's what I'm more concerned about, and I think the buffer's taking care of that. For me personally, I'm sure everybody has a different opinion on this. There's at least one day a week I'd rather be next to this than a church.
At least.
Yeah.
Interesting point. Mike, did you have anything to add?
No.
No? Okay.
Mike, I got your calculation on Sycamore Glen, it's 1.1.
1.1, thank you.
The changes that have been made, as I kind of try to assess things, I believe really are largely encompassing what it is that we've discussed previously. We seem to have a representation that the folks that are most affected by it are at least somewhat, if not maybe even a little more enthusiastically okay with this. Kind of as Andre has said, if we were looking at this as a part of the original Kimball Wick submittal, this is probably what would have been there, we would have maybe had a similar discussion, but I also think that from a land planning, idea, what you put near a town road and what you put near trees that are 500 feet away are gonna be two different housing products, so it's understandable what's here. But with all the plantings and water that is nearby and the increased buffering, I'm not sure what it is that I could try to contribute that would be anything that brings more gain. So I'm feeling like I don't have anything further to try to expect from the development team, and we can continue discussion if need be, but I'm not sure we're breaking any new ground anymore. It seems like we're going around and rediscussing things we've already discussed. So if there isn't a new angle, I'm not sure what we do, but if somebody has a new angle, you know, bring it up. If not, maybe we've accomplished our deed for tonight.
Do you all have any more questions for us? Anybody have anything?
Some good points.
I'll say from a different angle, literally, where my comments so far have been that outside looking in. I do like, from the interior perspective, not having a house directly at the end of the cul-de-sac. I've gotta imagine that's a lot nicer not to live with cars heading straight towards you, and even for those driving in, I know my neighborhood is older, so it doesn't really look like this, but there is a house straight at the end, and I've always wondered what that's like being that driveway. I'm glad it's not me, so that's kind of a nice benefit to the extra buffering and stuff you've done, is to not have that house at the end there.
I've never lived on a cul-de-sac, and it certainly wouldn't bring the same benefit to me today if I was to move to the end of a cul-de-sac, but I've looked at houses on the ends of cul-de-sacs, and I don't really like the tiny little front yards, but man, some of those mammoth backyards. I had 4 kids, so we had a lot of stuff that we had to deal with, and I've got a half acre, so we weren't crowded, but I would have been very happy to have had that end of the cul-de-sac or just off one way or the other lot.
That's us, we're on the
Another
side
day
of
and
one, because it was 6 kids, half acre, but I'm not straight at the end. I wouldn't wanna be that one, everybody driving at you.
Can I bring up one other thing, and just, because it's a safety thing, and I've thought about this before, because there has been issues all the time. Whenever there's these retention ponds that close, especially to what is a primary arterial, and I know that there's gonna be landscaping there, but at least when it's young, I mean, depending on what's traveling and stuff, whenever we have these lining up by the street, I've seen where we've actually had cars go in.
Isn't there gonna be a mound there though?
Well, there's a requirement now that there be if it's within so many feet of the road, there's a timber rail, right?
Yeah, so this is what we're mimicking.
Right.
This is the path, the travel lane for town road path.
You're gonna have to have it open where that pedestrian access is gonna be, right, where the construction is. And the only thing I'm worried about, and hopefully it'll be small enough, cause I see it happen on the Midland all the time, is cars getting onto the trail. And so I don't know how you're gonna intend to.
It'll be a Knox connection, a breakaway bollard with a Knox connection for police and fire.
Cause there will be people who will try and turn right there if there's any
The
way possible,
Yeah,
they'll try.
and the nice thing about this is, Kristen brought it up at the last meeting, that's why we upped the plan for the fence. The fence will be 100% across the frontage with the exception of that opening.
Yeah.
So you'll have from the lift station south, 100% fenced off with the image that we just saw on the 4-board fence. The opening then will be only wide enough for the trail with a Knox in the middle. When I say Knox, like along, I mean, picture Greyhound Pass and the Monon, even though we're not that wide. It's got a Knox block off on it, but it's not a good example because there's more room there to get on the trail.
John, what is a Knox, a bollard?
It's a bollard with a key, Knox key connection.
Okay, that's what I thought.
That fire has, they won't use it,
Yeah.
they'll,
Let's just
it's
run over.
it's designed to be pushed down,
Yeah.
so I'm not saying it's bad, it's just, there's
No,
a Knox
it's an
connection.
emergency.
To open it up, but
They won't use a key, they'll use their.
if there's an emergency where they need to use it, they're gonna bump it over and drive
Yeah,
into
yeah.
the site.
I hope so. If I have a heart
I-
attack, I want them to come as fast as they can.
Right there with you.
I do appreciate you running that, all along that frontage though, all the way. I
There actually
think
is
I've told you this before, I think it's one of the prettiest road frontages in Westfield. what you
Speaking
guys
of
did
the
there.
Turned out nice.
fence, there's a
Really
typo
nice.
in it where you talk about how you're gonna do 95%.
There's a zero instead of a
And
paren.
it becomes 950%, so you're gonna have to really ring a lot of fences.
Thanks, Bob, point out my mistake.
I just happened to notice that it almost,
Greg says it to me all the time, cause I can't spell.
well, these were
other
numbers,
things we're not
950,
spelling.
you didn't have to write
It
that.
is, it's because the shift is the same key for the zero and the other paren.
Sure.
Just so it matches
That's
the
my
other,
excuse.
the other Kimballwood, can you switch back since you're not having the regular cul-de-sac lots? Can you change the minimum lot frontage to back to 35 instead of 32? I know it's a small change, but
Yeah, I don't,
then it would be
that's not, it shouldn't be a problem.
Yeah.
We'll triple check, but.
just for, if it's gonna be the same.
Kevin, I was a little confused on that PUD that both concept plans were in there. Was that just done as a comparison?
It's the red line, it's a function of redlining it, that one has a line, you'll see a very, very faint line across it, that's taking that out and putting the new one in.
It won't be in the final document.
Okay,
If you look at
Show.
the updated version, it's not there.
okay.
I had to think about that for a while. When I was looking at it, it's like,
I didn't show that line.
Then it finally
I just
occurred
didn't
to
want it
me.
to be an either or situation,
No.
given the buffer situation, so.
staff have all the notes and everything
Well,
that
let's
seem
see.
necessary, any
Let's-
questions?
Let's see if I captured everything. So really what I'm gonna review here are the takeaway items that probably still need a little bit of, yeah, whatever, modification before it comes back to plan commission or further research, I'm not sure, but, looking into adding evergreen trees at the end of the cul-de-sacs as a requirement, landscaping requirement. And this is where I got confused. There was some discussion about some lower growth plants, trees, shrubs. I'm not sure. Is that the same? Is that doing the same thing?
I think this was potentially in the tree line because
That's in the
there's
tree
very
line, so that's a separate-
few
so
conifers,
those would be
there's more
separate.
deciduous
Trees
trees
gonna
there.
lose their leaves and then it'll be open.
Got it. So
Similar,
let me
different.
clarify my note on that.
And Kevin specifically, I think the note is make sure the neighbors understand
Yeah, and
heights at planting
that's another,
versus.
thank you, Rex, yeah, to make sure they understand installation versus full maturity. There's discussion about adding 5 to 10 feet, whatever that number ends up being, to the utility easement, to the on the south side of that easement for citizens to do work in that area rather than affecting the existing trees. And then this last comment about modifying the minimum lot coverage to 32 feet. There was a lot of discussion about density. I'm not sure we came to any sort of conclusion or, and if I'm wrong, please, this is the time to jump in. Is there something we want to see them do regarding density before they come back? If the answer is yes, what is that? If the answer is no, then then these are the notes that I had for the takeaways.
I'm good with density.
I'm not happy with the density at all, so.
So Cindy and Mike are not happy. What would you like to see? What?
I would like to see closer to the
Up to the
number,
west.
to the west, 1.33 is what I would like to see, max.
And I'd be generous and go up to probably 2, so.
She's easy.
Okay.
Okay.
So that's not helpful.
Well, I mean, it's feedback that needs wrestling with, so.
We demonstrate more of a transition.
So you're on board with lower density too?
I'm always on board with those. These guys already know that.
Density has a
But
place.
I take it as
Should not always be
simplify
on
of-
board with
of the
lower.
decision.
Yeah.
There's a downtown area that needs more, not less. So, all right,
So, did I miss anything, any topics?
Did you get the tree height one? I may have
Yes.
missed that. Okay.
So what does the next step look like after the first workshop? is it up to us to ask to be on the next, on a future plan commission meeting? Or do we come back to a workshop with these few items addressed? How do we? I don't know the protocol.
Well, there's not really a set protocol, it's really kinda how you feel about it. If, I mean, the first 3 or 4 changes that we talked about are pretty easy, straightforward, modifications to the ordinance, not a big deal, I think. Make those, come back to the plan commission for a recommendation at the next available meeting for that, which would be
It's August seventh.
August 7th. Now, this larger density discussion, I don't know how that's gonna come into your timeline. If you want to wrestle with that and come back to this group and have another discussion about that, you can, that'd be up to you.
So is that a recommendation you're making tonight about what the next step is, or can we reach back out to the department and advise what?
The latter.
Okay.
Yeah, tell us what you, which direction you're
Sure.
wanting to go, and we'll accommodate this.
Essentially, it's up to you.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I just wanna make sure if that was a tonight decision.
Yeah, you don't have to decide tonight, there's a lot to digest here, so.
And we aren't supposed to talk to you outside of this meeting, but those two people can.
Sure.
Okay. When they have on their council hats, not their plan commission
That's right.
hats. The longer you take, the longer it'll take for you to be able to get to the point of a recommendation from this body.
Right.
If you have the leisure of time and wanna take a little more of it, that's fine. If you wanna try to make a little more time, then, yeah, figure it out sooner and we'll see you whenever we see you.
Well, thank you all very much for
Thank
your
you for your
time
time.
and your feedback.
Thanks for coming out.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's yours.
Beneficial. Everybody is welcome to red things and green things over here.
Oh, we can?
I have plenty more coming. Out of Parkley's garden.
We found out farmers and gardeners, you know, they're not as generous as they seem, they just have so much stuff, they're trying to get rid of it. I'm just kidding, Bob.
I doubled the price earlier, so I realized this is probably
I'm gonna
something I
take some
can
of those.
represent as organic, so instead of free, it's now 2 times free. Yeah,
I'm
the price of
interested.
one.
They look great.
I've had some, they are great. These, anyway, so that is our workshop item for tonight.
Thank you very much, everybody. Drive safe.
Everybody in the room, including the people that are leaving now, is welcome to what I just offered. And then we will, and you can stick around and listen if you are so inclined. We have reports and comments coming up, but there is,
Grab one of each, thank you.
feel free.
My wife grew up on a farm, so she'll love.
We have no other similar items on tonight's agenda. We're gonna go through our reports and comments, which are fascinating sometimes, but I understand why you'd leave. All right, so items continued remain as Bonterra and Town Run PUD. So reports and comments of any sort from Plan Commission members here tonight? Anything they wanna talk about?
No, I think at pre-APC, we talked about town run PUD being a year since we've heard anything, so
needing
Kevin was
to
gonna reach out to
Get a
them.
decision.
Yeah, no update tonight,
And
I'll
would
try
definitely require another public hearing.
for sure.
So that item is on, is continued, but it may not be there the next time we see this agenda. So, City Council Liaison.
Council met July 10th, and Chief Rush provided an update on the design and progress of the new police station that's being contemplated. They're looking at perhaps a 50,000 square foot building on 10 acres, which will also include the informatics data center. And they're hoping for a site near the Grand Park area. Chief Gaylor gave an update on the new fire headquarters. Construction is ongoing and they don't have the exact move-in date yet, but building shell is in, the interior is being worked on. Also, they are seeking funds in 2024 to start the process of constructing another station to hopefully open in 25. Kevin, thank you Kevin, provided an update on the progress for evaluating plans for the comp plan update. He is requesting $400,000 in the 2024 budget and hopes to have a recommendation on how we proceed in September. And John Nail provided a status report on the capital improvement plans remaining for this year and then for 2024 to 2026. And he'll be getting that, so if anyone wants it, just contact me and I can get you that slide. Lyndon Nass gave an update on the RDC activities for the second quarter. She mentioned there has been no update from the Grand Park reviewing committee that are reviewing those proposals for the management. And she also mentioned changes at the state. It now requires RDCs to have specific spending plans. So that's a little different. We passed an ordinance prohibiting the use of public records for commercial purposes. And that should, in theory at least, help the clerk treasurer's office from being forced into extraordinary requests solely to entities using it for profit. They've gotten some incredible requests that are so time intensive, and it turns out it's just businesses from elsewhere wanting to use that information for their gain in one way or another. So we did pass that, and several residents spoke, one concerning drainage on our property, one commenting on right-of-way landscape maintenance in the city overall, and thinking that it needed more help. And Dave Miller spoke about the new book some of you here have contributed for. I think Jenny, you did? Did you, Bob? The new book?
I think I'm the only one.
No?
It's not sounding
Kevin, you
familiar, so I
did,
don't think I
no?
did.
I guess just Matt then. So I guess there's this book being put together. Dave Miller had this idea to do it from, it's the history of Westfield from 83, or
95, I think.
maybe 98.
98,
I think
yeah,
I wrote it
98.
down wrong because I originally had 93. So 98 to 2023, it's 25 years, yeah. And so that will
Supplement to
be,
the original green book.
yeah,
Okay.
I think so.
I didn't watch the meeting to the public comments. I guess I should have.
Yeah, and that's gonna be available at the Library and Historical Society in October. Unless you have an advanced copy, do you, Jen?
No, it's still in the printers.
Oh, okay. So October is the date to look for.
Yeah, I got roped into that.
Yeah, you did.
Here, can you help with this? By the way, can you write a chapter?
Goodness.
I did say no, so I'm
Or two.
sorry.
I know.
I actually could have saved you, and then I sent him over to you. I mean, that's it.
Thank you. There was the BZA meeting.
Yeah, shorter than last month's meeting, just two items. Proposal for expanding Trinity Baptist Church on 191st, that was approved, and then variance for a pool on County Place Drive, that was also approved. So, pretty simple.
The Baptist church expands. Seemed like they were building over a lot of existing parking.
They are, yeah, they're gonna expand their parking to the south, because of the way, 191st, the new roundabout and so forth. They just needed a variance for how close, the extension that is going to go east-west, closer towards the east. It is, yeah.
They needed something because their current building is closer than what would be allowed today. and they're
Exactly.
Lining it up, but then they also needed something from Chet Hill. But I was
Yeah.
looking at it, thinking, it doesn't say anything about what they're gonna do to park all these people. They're gonna
Yeah.
expand, but then they're gonna get fewer people, or they're all gonna be
They'll expand
pedestrians.
to the south, so.
Figured they had to do it somewhere, so, all right. There was no plat committee meeting,
But there might be
Again.
one coming up.
but yeah, possible. I'll have to remember who it is that's on this thing, and we've changed a member. So, this could be confusing. Anyway, so we're down to Community Development Department. Any words of wisdom for us, please? Come on, you guys. Feed him some good stuff.
It's all him. It's all
You're
him.
not looking good. All right,
Story of my life.
we are looking for a motion to adjourn this fine assembly.
So moved.
Moved from Dr. Kelleher and seconded by
Second.
Cindy Spalchier. Everybody in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed to adjourning? We are adjourned at 8:14. Pass these down for them.